All right, you sickos, Dieter and Hutch. Monday, post-draft. We got some grades. The verdict is in. We've let it marinate's the wrong word. We've let this settle a little bit, kind
Yeah,
of
we
let it
let it
lay.
sink in.
And I'm maybe this is self-congratulatory. I don't feel that different than I did in the immediate aftermath. I don't think that there's been some revelation that I've come to in the last 24 hours that makes me feel markedly better or markedly
Yeah.
worse about this 49ers draft. It's pretty meh, and it is a big bet on Robert Saleh's specific brand of prospect, which
Yeah.
is interesting.
Yeah, I would say it's interesting because I like the way they handled the defensive line. Again, Alfred Collins was not my guy, but I understand it, right?
Totally
Like
logical pick.
I don't blame him for the pick. There's major upside there. I think people are underselling the pass rush upside. Um
He
and
he he.
downplaying the run defense downside.
Yes, I think that's fair. I think that he has a lot of similarities to a Walter Nolan type prospect in a larger package. I think I gave it a B. B for boom, B for bust.
Right.
Like they're
That
all in. I don't think it's Kinlaw level boom bust, but
right. Especially at 43, it's whatever, second round gets dicey anyway. But the
yeah.
combination of Mykel,
Mhm.
Alfred Collins, and
Mhm.
CJ West, I think is an excellent, and that was the priority, right? Was getting the defensive line right.
They
Some might
nailed it.
argue offensive line is a priority, but anyone who knows the 49ers knows they actually I mean, you talk to Chris Furster, he's like, I don't give me anything. I want nothing. Because also, like, how are you ever going to get fired if they give you nothing and you do
That's right.
something with it, right?
I don't want this to knock
Um,
me into a new tax bracket. So if you could just not pay me, that'd be great.
totally. And then I think, as they usually do, they got out over their skis and they said, we got to get a linebacker. Who's our next linebacker now that Demetrius Knight is gone? It's
Yeah.
Nick Martin. And
Yeah.
so I
They,
think, and
by the
listen,
way,
like
Jake, they've done that
yeah,
a lot where they just say like round 3 is linebacker, and
it's
you're
Ambry
like
Thomas.
maybe
It's Ambry Thomas, right? They
that's
had
right.
I keep forgetting the name, kid from Stanford who played for the Saints, who was like,
Oh yes. I know who you're
they
speaking
preferred
of.
him, right? And then they went, well,
Adobo,
our next guy, yes, Paulson Adebo, Paulson
Paulson
Adebo.
Adebo. Sorry,
So
Adobo.
Lynch was like, yeah, we wanted him, but Ambry was closely graded. It's like, well, he was your next guy, and you wanted a corner.
That's not how you
Um,
draft.
I think they fixate on positions too much,
Mhm.
and instead of trying to extricate value as other teams do, they believe a little too wholeheartedly in their process, and in this case, a little too obsessively on finding a Dre Greenlaw replacement
Mhm.
and the all gas no brake mentality.
Well, and I want to get into that because it is the thesis of this draft. But when we talk about this team locking in on a position, that's not to say that they didn't do that with round 1, round 2, round 4, right? But when you
Correct.
have a draft where Mykel Williams falls to you at 11, you get away with it. When you have a draft that is unquestionably very deep and very high quality level of depth at defensive tackle, okay, fine. Alfred Collins was next on your board. It doesn't. That's fine. He's a good player. You can reasonably take him at 43. Or we really like T.J. Sanders. He's not there. Who's our next guy? You can get away with that when you have a deep position. When you're talking about position that you and I both absolutely hated at linebacker this year, which I usually hate linebacker. I have
Yeah.
very high standards at linebacker, but you hated it, and I'm going to take your word for it. And that last year you kind of liked the linebackers, like in this class, to say like we have to get a linebacker by 3. It's very bad pick management, and I know pick management doesn't matter if the picks hit, but Nick Martin 75 has some real all-time energy to it right here.
It also leads to some situations where, Jordan Watkins, I actually think is fine. I
Yeah.
like some of what I saw on tape. I think, again, overvaluing, where he is, but I get it. The problem is, like, if you didn't overvalue some of these other picks, right? You could have gotten like a Jalen Royals at a huge discount, who's a
Totally.
guy that I think he's got much more knack. I mean, I like
There's
I like
Kyle is very idiosyncratic. on what he wants in receivers. So I kind of
Right.
get that. Like, I don't think Jalen Royals, you notice when they talked about Watkins, they said, oh, he can take the top off of defense, which he can. Royals isn't that guy. Royals is a crafty number 2. He was the poor man's Ibuka.
Yeah, I mean, he grew on me as it went.
I liked him a lot. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I just don't know if he would have been Kyle's guy.
I get it, but it's like my point is there's some players that get snapped up. Like the 4th round to me is what the 3rd round used to be, where the 3rd round you just take guys that you're sold on, right, that are going to be good. And this year, everybody lost their mind towards the second half of round 2 into round 3 and just went like Isaac Tesla's going, Pat Bryant's going, Nick Martin's going, guys who are like 5th, 6th round guys, right? And
I think
teams are just
also,
losing it.
Okay, so which teams drafted well? I think the Chiefs drafted very well. I think the Eagles drafted very well. Cardinals drafted very well. Those are 3 teams that I can point to and say that they have, one, a very strong GM, right? And they have a very strong process that ends with the GM. The 49ers, Seattle, Real Deal points out in the chat, drafted very well. Absolutely strong GM right there. It's not to say that there's not cooperation and collaboration and understanding of what coaches need. But there's something to be said for when you have a strong GM and the theory of identity versus what the Niners have right now, which is not, he's just, John Lynch, for all of his very positive qualities, is not a strong GM. He's not higher on the depth chart than Kyle, if push comes to shove, has been proven out with some contracts, and he doesn't even get to negotiate the good contracts. So how could he be a strong GM? He's a good guy, and you like having him in the building, and he's an asset, but he's not a strong GM.
Lynch, and I genuinely don't mean this is like a sharp criticism, is more of a project manager. Like he is organizing people. Yes. He's generating consensus, right? He's making, and he does a lot of like the hard work to when Parag goes too hard in some of these deals to fix some relationships. Lynch does a lot of work, but
big
in terms
good
of
cop
like,
energy on John Lynch.
In terms of like the concrete, like he is at the top of the board making every scouting final decision. Like it's not as clear that he's the one fully stamping those as opposed to, and he is doing a ton of work. It's just a different dynamic.
Well, because John Lynch doesn't have that cachet inside the building, right? And that's inside the building. What happens is that consensus is, the ball is passed around a lot. Like,
did you say that because they keep mentioning their area scout, Warren Ball?
No, but Warren Ball is actually a pretty good area scout. I will note we've talked a lot about the brain drain coaching side, certainly the player drain that we saw this past offseason in free agency and even before that. The guys behind the scenes that have been taken away in recent years, we're at a point where Peter Principle is a real thing, and you will get promoted to your point of incompetence. And the feedback that I got on this draft was that it was very coach-led. That does not surprise any of you, I imagine.
And they leaned into that a little too aggressively.
But here's the thing. That's how every team has their coaches put up reports on prospects.
Right.
Every team. Because the scouts come in, they have their guy. The GM has his crew, kind of in-house people. They do the reports, and then they send them to coaches and say, give us what you think on these people. So if you have a strong GM, they are saying, hey, go scout this guy for me. The scout comes back, and then they say, hey, coach, give me a feedback on this guy. But it's all funneling up to the GM and his crew. If you have a strong head coach who leads the way, then you end up in a position where those coaches' reports oftentimes have more things. And when you have a lot of people in the scouting department that have been poached away, and I'm just going to be blunt, I'm not the biggest fan of the 49ers scouting department right now, and I think that some of the people who have been promoted the reason that they're still here is because they couldn't get jobs anywhere else to a degree, like certainly the level that they have. So the scouting department is the front office, the John Lynch guys are, a lot of them are, to my knowledge, a lot of them are very quality, but they don't have the kind of power to put their foot down and say, this is what's up. So it comes back to the position coaches again and again and again. And you see Robert Saleh's stamp on this. You see Chris Foerster's stamp on this, and that nobody was good enough until round 7. And then, I get this fun little project in Connor Colby, who comes from a scheme, and we'll get into all the details. And then Kyle gets his wide receiver and his running back, and they're almost, carbon copies of players that they used to have. This feels, every team has issues with the draft. No team is coming through with, just an impeccable logic, all this stuff. But this feels very discongruous.
My biggest critique is that it feels like, hey, remember him? Remember K1 Williams? Let's go get K1 Williams. Hey, we lost Dre Greenlaw, and remember Aziz? Like, what if we got a guy that's like that, right?
It goes even deeper than that. I mean, Jordan James is just Elijah Mitchell. He's the same thing.
I disagree.
He is. Oh, okay. He's a little bitty guy who runs in really tight windows.
He's
probably
not
at
that
his own
fast.
detriment.
Elijah Mitchell is incredibly fast.
Yeah, until year one, and then he never had that speed again.
I don't see Elijah Mitchell comparison.
That's one person's take. Let's go pick by pick here, because there are some great picks, and I do think that they need to be celebrated. Mykel Williams is a triumph of a pick.
100 out of 100.
He's the immediate starter at 5 technique. He's your immediate edge setter at 5 technique, and you can enter. I look at one of the main complaints, and it's a very fair criticism, though perhaps not contextually appropriate. Mentioned it earlier, they didn't get an offensive lineman. Everyone wants them to get the Trent Williams replacement. I understand. That's a fair thing to want. Well, they went and got a Nick Bosa replacement in Mykel Williams, if you want to play the projection game with Mykel Williams and his pass rush ability. But in the meantime, he's going to give you really good 5 technique, and at the very worst, he's going to be that opposite end of Bosa. But if you ever feel like you need to move on from Bosa, which I don't think is anytime soon, but NFL 2 years from now is a long ways away, you could say, oh, well, we have Mykel. We'll be fine at 9. And that's an interesting thought for down the line. To have that projectability as a pass rusher while also having the here and now of something that you desperately have needed for years is fantastic.
Yeah. By the way, ADP, we have to give it grades because this is how this thing works. You have to give a grade, but we are talking about fit and what their purpose is. We're not just saying, give them 100. Mykel, again, our probably favorite player in the draft, sets the edge in ways that are, and I did appreciate Tariq Ahmad, was asked, so he doesn't pop on film, what do you, and he's like, yes, he does.
What the fuck are you talking about?
He's like, what are you watching? He absolutely pops on film.
And I appreciate that. Listen, I can appreciate that folks who have been beat writing and such for decades now are not going to invest the time, effort, or energy to have a comprehensive understanding of an NFL draft class, because come July, it doesn't matter where you got picked. It just matters if you can make the team. That is just an adjective to describe somebody with down the line. But the idea of not watching the All-22 film of pick number 11 is kind of embarrassing at this point.
I agree. I mean, I think it's something where you just watch them, and it's something where if you look up the highlight tape and you go, okay, but if you understand football and he's playing real football, he is destroying edges, he is collapsing the pocket, and he has more pass rush chops with a swipe move, with long arm power, and a rip through. And again, all that needs refinement, but the foundation's there, and you're not going to find a guy in that frame that powerful at age 20 ever. He is a top 5 talent for sure.
If this was a different draft, there's that. If he had stayed in college for another year, come on now. I mean, I'm already looking at 26. I'll take this kid over the guy who's coming in at Penn State. I mean, you don't need us to tell you that we really like Mykel Williams.
That's the obvious one here.
He's fantastic. And again, it should be noted at 20 years old, he becomes immediately a starter at 11, which is something that is vitally important. Sorry, I keep saying vital, but I don't know how to put this any clearer. Nick Bosa is happier today because Mykel Williams is on his team. Again,
he could not complain more. I mean, not openly, but
he complained openly, and then to me, just Jesus, Nick, can you tone it down a bit?
We haven't had since Amenahu anyone who could even sort of set the edge, and Farrell kind of did it, but not really.
Yeah. Listen,
Yeah.
sickos know all about this. They know all about Mykel Williams. They're in or they're out. And as I said earlier, it doesn't matter come July. So
Yeah.
we celebrate the win today. Let's see if we were right or wrong. And
Yeah.
I think I'm fascinated to find out with Alfred Collins if he's got that pop that you can see every now and again on the film where you go, God damn, that's a big boy getting up fast.
Totally.
And if that's there, oh, buddy, that is something they really need because I see him as a one tech personally.
I get the bet. I think he could play 3 as well. But like I do think. I mean, I'm interested to see like the dynamic of how they use him and CJ West. I would rather have CJ West at 3 and Collins at 1.
That's where I would do it. Just on size, it's almost like a center power forward argument. Like
totally
bigger.
And I do love like. It's something where we talked about where it's like if you do get Collins and then you set it up where you get another guy like a CJ West, where we're sort of like, I don't know if they're going to actually do that.
Yeah.
That was the thing I was most a fan of, that they went and they were like, we need another piece. We need someone
they
as
looked
sort
at their
of a
depth
balance.
chart. Like, shit, we're going to start a chair.
Here's the thing. It's the criticism and the praise is that, so they're like, all right, we're going to get these tiny players on the back end who are absolute size outliers. We have to protect them by getting a beefy front, which is sound logic, but also maybe like don't spend premium picks on players that need to be protected. Because if you're going to talk about the Dre Greenlaw replacement, he didn't need to be. We'll get there on Nick Martin. I would get
one step away.
I would give Alfred Collins a solid B, like an 84 grade.
Yeah.
80. It doesn't matter. Whatever.
Well, can I throw this your way, Jake? Notice that where they picked and where they were expected to pick is the exact same thing. So we talked often about the Niners being very insular. And I think John Lynch even told the story before the draft about how there were a lot of rumors about what the Niners wanted to do. And it's like, you're one of my best friends in football. You think that if I was trying to get into the top 6 and you're in the top 6, it's like, Jesus, don't get away too easy there. But they are this is a post Trey Lance development. They are extremely, extremely insular. And they could have traded down probably a little bit and gotten Collins. And there was moves to be made by just the evidence of how that round went.
Yep.
They didn't do it. So 43-53, is there any difference in a couple of weeks? No. So I'm not going to worry about that value. What I am going to say is in this draft particularly, you needed, yes, absolutely, players that could just step in right now. No question about that, because you just don't have enough players. But especially early, you have to have the boom potential. You have to have the ability to sell that player who can also just step in right now with the potential to be a franchise cornerstone in a couple of years, because there's a world in which the San Francisco 49ers are looking for franchise cornerstones in like 2 years, maybe 3, and maybe it's a different coaching staff that's doing it. They need to have the floor. They need to have the ceiling. I think Alfred Collins, perhaps more than any other D tackle in this range, represented that.
He does. He's got monstrous size, incredible power in his hands. He can shed blocks in a way that is really eye-popping. And unlike a guy like Deion Walker, who's got truly some of the most inconsistent pad level and worst tape I've ever seen, who sometimes does something incredible. Yeah. Collins is more, I would say, generally consistent. His pad level needs refinement. His technique needs some work. I do think limiting him and not having him out there as an every single down player his rookie year is going to be beneficial to him.
Absolutely.
I'm fine with the pick here. I have concerns, about his pad level and cleaning up some of that stuff, and whether he hits. Again, I liked Vernon Broughton better, but it's not something that I'm going to say, oh, they made an egregious mistake. I understand the bet.
I'll also say this. Mykel Williams was used too little by Georgia, but when he was on the field, he was used as an extension of the coaching staff in a way, right? He was tasked with so much responsibility. Alfred Collins was given that same level of onus from the Texas coaching staff, except they just kept his ass on the field the whole game.
Yeah.
Like they went full LeBron and Luka second half yesterday. Just you're playing all 24. And you could see for a big man, 6'6" at defensive tackle, right, where low man wins, like, of course, I'm almost going to be deferential to the pad level thing on the basis of I can't say this for sure, but I bet that pad level was worse as the game went on. I bet that a lot of those pad level concerns that you have are later in the game as opposed to earlier when you're a little bit more tired, when you've been working your ass off, taking double teams on again and again and again, when you're trying to just get yourself a sack because you want to do something cool. Like, that's something that I think you and I should both really dive into. Is it a tired pad level issue or is it a fundamental pad level issue?
Yeah, we'll
like they had
revisit
with Javon Kinlaw. Here's Nick Martin.
Yeah. This is a pick that if it was in round 5, I'd say makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. In
like
round 5.
There's a lot
this
of
is
speed.
A classic day 3 pick, right?
Dude, perfect day 3 pick.
Absolutely.
You're taking him, and here's the thing. It's not like it's even like a pick 100 where you could go, okay, whatever. It's like late in round 3. This is pick 75. This is a premium pick. And the problem is
I mean, to establish the ground rules here, if you're a top 100 pick, you have to have a role on day 1. That's not to say you're a starter, but you have to be a third down specialist, a first or second down. So like in the case of Nick Martin, that means you're your starting Sam linebacker, which I guess he is because there's no competition.
He's at least starting Sam linebacker, has to be.
I don't like that idea. You just slot him in there and you go like, you're going to go with a linebacking core of Fred Warner, who's the best in the game, D. Winters at will, and that's if D. Winters is available, and then Nick Martin at Sam. Like, I understand what they see. I think that they are far ways away from being able to do what they want to do.
It's a lot of chaotic speed with guys who overrun the ball next to Fred Warner, and who, again, are undersized. And maybe Martin puts on weight, but like, the thing about
does he lose some of that jump?
Right. Like, the thing about Greenlaw, where they keep talking about Greenlaw, it's like Greenlaw wasn't that tall. It's like Greenlaw played it like in the high 230s, right?
Greenlaw might have played at 250 one year. 2 years ago, Dre Greenlaw was like significantly larger. I would say that Dre Greenlaw was way closer to a 240 than a 230.
He was wide. Like,
he had those big ass shoulders too. That stuff matters.
And Martin is, by all accounts, pretty strong for his size.
He could do a bunch of bench presses. Like, that's cool.
Right. It's just something where if you're going to take a player at 75, or if you say, all right, we're going to take Nick Martin, you should trade down. Like, you should have an understanding of what the market is. You should have an understanding of, I know it's all insular and you love your own consensus, but you're not doing a good enough job, in my view, of understanding what the value is. And maybe the league was higher on him than we all knew. Sure. I have a hard time believing he would not have been there at least at 100.
There's a risk-reward factor in this, Jake. Like, okay, they believe...
And there's other linebackers that are similar, that are, like, fast and, like, have other issues, right? Like,
there's absolutely that. So, like, 2 thoughts on this. 1, absolutely, there was after the fact, it comes out like, there was Mel Kiper had him here. Mel Kiper doesn't put up anybody's draft board, but I can appreciate that Mel Kiper's done this forever, and I think he does a very good job and always has. So I'm not knocking the Mel Kiper of it all. Certainly, there had to have been, and he has unbelievable connections that he never lets you onto. He's not citing sources.
Yep.
But people talk. If you're a GM or someone high up in a front office and you don't call Mel Kiper once a year, what the hell are you doing in your life? Like, if nothing else, just to talk to Mel Kiper once. Like, that's a thing.
Right.
So he was saying that he was a fast riser. I believe that. The question is, how many teams were considering him in this range? And I can only go off the conversations that I have, which are not GM conversations or Mel Kiper conversations, right? Like, we're hanging out in the slums here. But I have enough to where, how many of those top 10 picks did we get early? Like, I got enough to where Nick Martin's name, and I mean this, had never come up before. Not once. And I talked about some rando-ass linebackers. I'm having conversations about Brandon George with 2 or 3 different folks, 2 or 3 different teams, and they're like, oh, yeah, we really like him, this and that. And I'm like, who else do you like here? Because I'm not seeing much I like. And they're listing off names left, right, and center. Nick Martin's name never came up. And these guys aren't exactly worried about giving it away because they know, no one watches this shit. So, like, this is a strange one. Second thought on this. You mentioned the width of a Dre Greenlaw. That stuff matters. Dre Greenlaw was built like a linebacker. Nick Martin's not built like a linebacker. If you saw Nick Martin 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you'd think that he was a box safety. which isn't to say that there's not a value for that. Like the way that he's built is far more Cam Chancellor-esque, even though he's short, than it is. Okay. Box safety. He's more like a Talanoa Hufanga than he is a Dre Greenlaw. How about that in terms of girth, width, all that stuff? Is he strong? Yes. Does he explode? Sure. But he's 6 foot and he's playing at 230 if he's lucky. So when I look at that frame, and then I consider he's playing off of an injury last year, the guys who look like that at the NFL level and play linebacker are guys who are elite in coverage. They're typically safeties that have been converted to weak side linebacker, and that's a true weak side linebacker, and they are typically someone who, like an Eric Kendricks, is just floating. You can't get past them. They're a great coverage linebacker. I'm talking about peak Eric Kendricks, not whatever the hell's happening here. So when you have that, and then you look at Nick Martin, that's not his game. I think he's okay in coverage. He doesn't look comfortable in it, which is notable. But he's certainly athletic enough to get away with whatever comfortability he has.
He's. I think his feel is okay. I think he's a little too jumpy, playing like the curl hook and just like jumping around a little bit, and instead of following the receiver and keeping a feel or an attachment to him, he's sort of jumping around, a little hyperactive in every bit of his movement.
Everything he does is hyperactive. You mentioned earlier, all gas, no brakes. This is just the quintessential all gas guy. You know what's kind of important, though? I know it doesn't look good on a T-shirt or on a wall, but like brakes are kind of important. Like you need to have some brakes.
Invest in quality brakes for your car, folks.
I don't care if you can go 120 miles per hour if you can't get into the corner, right? And if football is a game of angles, what is a guy who can only go in a straight line doing for you? Especially too when there is I understand again what they're trying to do on the defensive front, but they are not there. They're not where they need to be yet.
Yeah, I mean, I can see Martin working out, right? Like I can see it, right? The upside is clear. Like it's also very easy to like look at an RAS score, which maybe we've been guilty of in the past years more than this one, of just saying, oh, this guy tested really well, he's going to be great. And I get the bet. The questions I have are, you're drafting an undersized linebacker at pick 75, and your plan is to have other rookies like, protect him, right? I just think fundamentally that, and also your obsession with finding a Greenlaw replacement, and sort of the Saleh of it all being like, well, we love Robert Saleh's all gas, taking like a slogan and interpreting that so literally that you're like, you need that, I think is a little bit of a questionable process. And I think in round 3, they took that too far. And again, I'm not saying Martin can't work out. I see the upside, right? Like he triggers to the ball. He puts it all out there. He's got the one thing that matters the most to me, which is that he's willing to basically die on the field.
Right. That is a very big differentiation. It's something we did not see in a lot of linebackers in this class.
I just think they massively overvalue their consensus versus what I think the league thinks of him. And they've done that in years past. And they'll hold up Dominic Pooney. You know who else? That they've drafted in years past, Dieter?
A lot of guys.
Jair Brown, Cam Latu, Jalen Hurd. The best bad one was Ahkello Witherspoon, Tarvarius Moore. They traded up for Ty Davis Price. They traded up for Trey Sermon. Like, there's so many examples of them overvaluing their belief in the third round and not learning from it. That's why, sure, it could work out. Absolutely. I understand it. You're at least betting on an athlete who's aggressive. The red flags, the flag should go up here.
Let me throw some names your way. And these are guys that were all available to the 49ers, at least to my knowledge. Sean Dolak. Do you know who Sean Dolak is?
Yeah, leading tackler in college football out of Buffalo. And his teammate was like number 2. Buffalo.
Yeah, Red Murdoch. Yeah. Not a great defensive line at Buffalo, apparently. Jackson Woodward, Colin Ramos, Travion Barnes, Jacob Rodriguez, Isaac Smith, Jaden McDonald, Jay Higgins. Here's a name you do know. Stone Blanton, Mississippi State. They picked him up as an undrafted free agent. And I actually like Stone Blanton kind of more than I like Nick Martin. These are all guys who had a tremendous amount of tackles last year. That's your top 10 in tackles in college football last year. I missed one name, Carson Schresinger, who is number 3. He had 136 tackles last year. The concept of he made a lot of tackles in college doesn't really translate at linebacker to the NFL
Well,
level.
you know why? Because Aziz was like third in the country when the year before he got injured, and so I bet they're like, there's a little Aziz there too,
There's a lot of
right?
Aziz there.
You
For
know
being
what Aziz
honest.
was? An undrafted free agent.
Correct. This is and the issue that I have with Martin is not that he's in camp. It's not that there's not something that you can see there, because we can absolutely see it win. But when the Rams take Chris Paul 100 picks later, almost 97 picks later, I think it was.
Yes, like one in the 140s or something.
You both took undersized Mike linebackers that you're trying to convert to will. Why wouldn't you just wait and get Chris Paul, who apparently the knocks apply to him, but they don't apply? And this is where the insular nature of the Niners is a real issue.
Yep. I just think, like, I get what you're betting on. I think it's just too early. And I think and if it all works out, sure, it doesn't matter. But there's a level of process in the third round that I think they just go, we're convicted in our guys, and it ignores the actual value considerations that are important in an NFL draft. And if you're going to build all around rookies, like, you should probably try and maximize the value that you're getting.
There's one name that I will hear as a viable Nick Martin comp, and the name is Nakobe Dean. Let me also tell you that Nakobe Dean missed 4 games on IR in 2023. He missed
huge injury concerns coming out of Georgia.
8 games as soon as he came back, and then he just had his patella ligament explode in the playoffs. Like, Nakobe Dean was a very productive college player at a far more important school, Georgia, a leader on that team. Though I do think maybe we underrate the Oklahoma State defense a little bit, and I'm anti-Big 12, Big 10, all that.
Yeah.
Like, I thought the Oklahoma State defense was actually the best part of Oklahoma State, which is somewhat of a topsy-turvy world that we live in, much like how Texas Tech has nothing but tough guys now. I don't know what the hell's going on, but things change. Nakobe Dean is a hell of a football player, and the Eagles still won the Super Bowl without him, but it was a big deal. But, man, he's the concern. He would be the guy that you go, yeah, that's why. But guess what? They just drafted Jihad Campbell, 6'3", 235, to replace Nakobe Dean. He didn't even get through his rookie contract before they brought in his ready-made replacement. But Nakobe Dean, 5'11", 231.
Yeah. After extending Zach Bound, too.
Who's outstanding. Who's outstanding, but a coverage linebacker.
Yeah.
He's the best coverage linebacker, and he's even bigger than Martin. So, yeah. And one more thing on Martin. Sorry, I hate to belabor the point.
Well, because this is the main criticism of their draft.
So you need long arms when you're a linebacker, because you need to be able to separate from second-level blockers. And I think that arms are really important on this. If nothing else, you just reach out and grab somebody should you be engaged. When we're talking about height, I don't care as much about the height. I do care about the arm length. I really do. And Nick Martin's arms are not disproportionate. And it was hilarious to hear John Lynch be like, he's got long arms. Well, he might look like he has long arms, but then you measure them and they are, in fact, not long. He has a 63% wingspan. That is, he has basically a slightly better than average wingspan for a way below average height. So proportionally, he's
the arm length is
there.
33rd percentile.
Right. So,
which is not damning, but it's not helpful when you're undersized.
But he's a 1% height. He's a 1% weight. Like, it is going to be impressive if he can do it. And we're going to find out. Maybe because the 49ers offensive line is so bad, we won't find out.
And again,
like
he's going to get a chance. Like, that's the thing. Like,
nothing but chances, baby. But I wouldn't. I'll call this right now. I wouldn't be surprised if Stone Blanton. It's an outside shot. I'm not saying this is certain, but I'm saying, like, let's put a 5%er on this. Stone Blanton might be the better linebacker they bring into camp.
Yeah. I think so. One last thing I sort of said. People will love him for the flash and will likely not hear any criticism against him because of the flash. Because when he ranges over and makes a tackle, there's going to be pop.
Great YouTube.
He's going to pop, and people are going to love him. And so when you criticize him, you're going to be faced with, well, what about that? It's like, it's not a zero-sum game, which is the 49ers are treating it that way. That's not how free agency works and how any of this. That's how they've treated free agency and their whole offseason, that it's a zero-sum game, is that You get rid of this guy, you got all this dead cap, you can't sign anyone. Not how it works.
Yep.
That's how fans, I think, are going to treat Nick Martin, where there's flash, you can't criticize him. But I suspect there's going to be a lot more whiff than folks are going to want to hear.
Right.
And it's a question of like whether he can iron out the hyperactive triggering and find ways to consistently play above his weight against second-level blockers where he is, at times, getting clobbered. So we'll see.
It's not
we'll
really
see.
at times. It's pretty consistent. If he can't run away from the second-level blocker, if the second-level blocker gets to him, it's kind of over for him.
And that was a criticism I had for Jihad Campbell, where like Jihad Campbell got attacked at the second level, but he's also like 6'3", massive.
And it was the reason that I wasn't in on Chris Paul, the linebacker. It's like if he gets to the second level, he just gets demolished. But if we're at
and we were like Chris Paul maybe at 100 or something, like
right. So
yeah.
Here we go. They locked in on linebacker pretty clearly. They said they were targeting him, and then they go to Upton Stout, which. I like Upton Stout, the player.
I do.
This is a bad pick. Full stop. It's a bad pick, even though I like the player a lot, and I think that he's going to have value for this team. But when you have the needs that this team has, and you're like, what if we upgraded at one of the 7 positions that we're good at? Like, what are we? Also, not an upgrade. You have arguably the best slot corner in the NFL. You just paid him.
So this makes me wonder, like, was part of their negotiations with Lenoir, like, we're going to be proactive about adding it, and because they've never been able to find a nickel. So, like, I can understand being like, all right, we like this kid.
Gap between K1 and Lenoir.
Right. So, like, they wanted to say, all right, we've been unable to find, like, even a backup nickel, so we're going to bring a guy in who is like a stellar nickel, who's really feisty, who has speed to run with people. Again, I like Upton Stout, the player. I think at 100, again, it's a little bit of overvaluing, and it's also like you're taking away, if your plan is we're going to put this kid in the slot and then Lenoir's going to stay outside, it's taking away some of Lenoir's upside, and maybe you're saying, all right, well, we got a discount on Lenoir. We can just play him at outside corner and it's fine, and if Stout gets hurt, we move him inside. I get that. I think you're knocking your own value a little bit in terms of what you get with Lenoir, which is like a great nickel and like a pretty good outside corner. And then you're just saying, all right, well, we're going to sort of overvalue a nickel position, which is a guy who can't possibly play outside. And also, like, you know, at 75, you could have gotten Jacob Parrish, right?
Yeah, right. There were a lot of good options.
Who, like, could play outside or inside. Right?
I liked him a lot better outside, but a lot of people liked him inside, right?
You could play him outside or inside, whereas Upton Stout can't. And then you could have gotten Nick. Like, to me, that's where the criticism comes in, is like Jacob Parrish, to me, is a dog. Like a stellar player who can play in the slot or outside. And again, each team is going to be different on their valuations. But that's a guy I think could literally do both, who has a higher ceiling, I think. Because, again, one guy can only play nickel, which still a really valuable position in this defense. But it is a position that's not out there every single snap. And again, like, I just think you'd want a guy that could potentially do both. And then you take Martin at 100. I would have less criticism. I know they have their own process, whatever. I just think, again, consistently, they're overvaluing the all gas, no break thing and betting on outliers size-wise at positions in the draft that are really, really valuable.
I also just think this idea that, if we get a bunch of beefy boys up front, then no one could ever hurt our boys on the second level. And it's like, that's not how this works. Like, have you ever seen DK Metcalf? Like, people just get bigger and faster and stronger on the offensive side every year. Like, let me put it to you this way. Mykel Williams was a wonderful player for the 49ers and unquestionably a leader on the defense. And I can understand why they would want to bring somebody like him back, right? They would like to get the second coming of Mykel Williams. 2 thoughts on this. 1, Mykel Williams never played a full season for the 49ers.
Always had some injuries.
5'8", 185 pounds. He was on the injury report for half the year. He missed at least a game, if not 2 or half the season, every year he was with the 49ers, okay? He was also at the end, by the way, he hasn't played since 2022. He made it to 31, got signed by the Broncos, and has not played in the NFL since. Furthermore, which I guess that'd be a good problem for Upton Stout, that he's getting contracts and stuff. There's a reason the Cleveland gave up on him in the first place. There's a reason the Niners loved him. And there's a reason that they didn't re-sign him after the 2021 season. Also, the coverage stuff for K'Wan Williams. I've had arguments with this with people who have done this in the league. Like, me and Dante Whitner do not see eye to eye on this at all. And it is, every now and again you get a little bit of imposter syndrome, but it's like, who really agreed with me? Matt LaFleur. Because every time the Packers played the 49ers, K'Wan Williams had the worst day of his life. He was a slot corner who could not cover the flat, and he certainly could not go deep. So what is it you would say you do here? And this was certainly towards the later end of his career. But the requirement to have to bring a safety down to cover the hook and all that, I do not understand the Upton Stout thing. Now, do I think that this is bad pick value in a vacuum? No, I think that he probably should have been about the 100th player taken, because there's enough where you just love it and someone was going to like him there and you roll with it. But there's a reason that slot corners don't get paid as much as outside corners. And there's a reason that they signed Diamador Lenore to a contract this past year. And I guess now they have an incredible value at outside, but they have an above average outside corner and are going to play at best an above average slot corner in Upton Stout now, whereas you could have gone and gotten a future long-term option on the outside, which you'll always need. You'll always need depth at corner, outside corner, and kept arguably the best player on the outside, who, by the way, was able to, on the inside, who was able to play outside when you were in base. But I guess they can't do base anymore because they don't have any fucking linebackers. So
I'm with you. I think it's overvaluing nickel in a weird process when you had one, unless there was like some agreement with Lenore, which I just don't understand. You're devaluing your own player.
Yeah.
It's odd to me. I didn't like how they valued these two picks. But
can I go to the comment section real fast here? Bahim says Saleh just wanted his Jamie and Sherwood. First off, we wanted actual Jamie and Sherwood well before that. There's no Jamie and Sherwood in this draft. There was not one person that I would have comped to Jamie and Sherwood in this draft. Is there anybody that you had in
He's
mind?
also pretty long. Jamie and Sherwood's
he's got the arms.
Yeah, and was drafted as a safety, converted and added weight over time.
That's right. It was a multi-year process, and it just broke through this year, if we're being honest about it.
Yeah,
just in time for him to get paid. He can maybe.
Nick Emanwari's not quite that.
You can't. I don't think Nick Emanwari has the frame to put on the weight to play linebacker, though he would have been. That would have been.
I mean, Nick Emanwari. No, he does. I mean, I think he's
too lanky.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know if I see any comparison there. There's not enough.
Jamie and Sherwood is just the Fred Warner model, and it's just the Dre Greenlaw model to a degree. Like
Kevin Winston, maybe, but I don't really like Kevin Winston.
False step Winston?
Yeah. I mean, but if you put him in the box and simplify it.
He played a lot of box safety for Penn State.
I know. I'm trying to find a confidence.
My favorite thing about Kevin Winston is at the beginning of every snap, he'd take a step in the wrong direction. It was just, it was. So I guess
somebody asked Trey Brown and Renardo the starting. I don't know. Trey Brown's like a rotational safety at best.
We should probably mention that Malik Mustafa apparently tore his ACL and is out at least half the season.
Well, may not be that long. It was
differing Jennifer Lee Chan reports here. Is that what's going on?
I'll mention that in a second. No, I will. I will. But like the Mustafa thing, the clarification I think from our guy Nick is like he had a repair done and it was the graft that got injured. So it's not a full ACL tear. It's like it's something a little bit different. The timeline, it's not like a full repair is needed.
And there's a little bit of a fraying of what they put together.
So they need to fix it, and it sounds like he's going to try and make it for training camp or part of training camp. But the start of the season is definitely in question.
Absolutely,
definitely in question. The thing. Okay, so real quick, I just want to mention
Greenlaw thing.
And this is not a criticism of Jen, who I love and interact with in person. She's great. This is Jen reports that Dre Greenlaw tore his quad, right? And that his season, part of the season is in jeopardy.
Immediately, if you tear your quad, you have to think, okay, what's a year from now? That's April.
Immediately, everyone in Denver and some national reporters go, it's a strain. Again, strain is a tear. It's different levels of tears. but that the start of the season is not in question. To me, I'm not even going to go deep on this, but it's just, I would ask, as readers, as consumers of media in general, consider like what information benefits who. Just going to leave it there.
I will say this, regardless of the severity of Dre Greenlaw's injury, this is a linebacker coming off of a post-Achilles tear. And I think that any Bay Area sports fan knows firsthand, twice as it pertains to the Warriors.
Neither of us thought they should have re-signed Greenlaw. Like, there was a lot of injury concerns at that price tag.
But you see what happens when Kobe Bryant's a great example. DeMarcus Cousins is a great example. Klay Thompson's a great example. You have compensation injuries, right? When the Achilles is a brutal one to come back from. Dame Lillard's going to find out here, in the next couple. The idea of signing anybody to a salary raise coming off an Achilles injury would have been fiscal malpractice for a football team. I don't care. I don't care if it was Joe Montana. I mean, like, there's a reason Kirk Cousins is floating around. There's a reason that Aaron Rodgers is floating around. There are, I'm sure, examples of post-Achilles players coming out and being there. They are the exceptions to the rule. I mean, even Kevin Durant is not the same. I know I'm mixing sports here, but the Achilles epidemic is getting up to UCL level in baseball, not with quantity, but in terms of severity, and it does seem to be escalating. I don't know what's going on in our modern world of athletics to where Achilles, which is not an injury I remember hearing ever until about 10 years ago, outside of very rare things.
Maybe it's the explosion. It's the speed and then the quick twitch and all that, right?
It's got to be. Kind of important for a linebacker, right?
Yeah.
That's a big-time break in the all-gas, no-breaks thing.
It feels a little bit like the Niners are fixated on Greenlaw. John Lynch flew out there after he signed the contract, which I guess they thought because Eric Kendricks did him like that and reneged on his deal, and they got stuck with Devondre Campbell, might be worth a shot.
I just think does say Richard Sherman did well after his injury. I think he made one Pro Bowl after that, and that might be an exception to the rule. He was never the same Richard Sherman.
Let me just say, I think they're too fixated on Greenlaw. Like, move on.
Unquestionably. And by the way, they lucked out by him saying no, because by all accounts, I've heard that they offered more money than Denver. Now, they couldn't offer the same role as Denver, but it doesn't matter what your role is if you're not on the damn field. So I love Dre Greenlaw as a guy. I loved him as a football player. I just think that it would have been absolute malpractice to give a guy a raise coming off an Achilles injury, especially after what we saw last year.
At that price tag. I thought if it was $8 million a year, okay, it's more than that. There's just
I'm sure Nick Martin will be great, though.
Worrying. Yeah.
We love CJ West. Can't get
CJ
enough
West,
of it.
100 out of 100. My dog loves it too.
Fantastic. Hi, Tucker.
So stoked about it.
He did perk up for CJ West, as I think all good football-loving dogs and people should do.
Yeah, that's right.
You watch this guy and you're like,
excellent pick. I don't even have much to say about it. DJ Jones comp I get, but like he even has more pass rush ability than DJ Jones.
He is he's all motor. I don't know if he has the same explosion out of his stance as DJ Jones. That was the whole thing with DJ Jones, is he was just pop, done, over. DJ Jones really didn't do anything for you if he didn't win off of the snap, but he just kept doing it, so it didn't matter. And he stayed low because he had no up to give you. CJ West does play upright a little bit, right? He'll ride the wave of the line a little bit sometimes, particularly against zone. But here's the thing, an acute understanding of angles. So a lot of times when we talk about
killing guys at the Shrine Bowl.
That's right. A lot of times when we talk about offensive linemen, especially later ones, kind of project ones, you're looking for guys who understand how to play the angles game, because just having that little bit of advantage or being able to take a little bit of acceleration or power out of a guy because you're hitting him in just the right spot can be the difference between, splitting a rep or losing it dramatically. Yeah. CJ West does that same thing at the defensive line. And so even if he's a player who loses I think it's requisite athleticism, even as it goes, I think that he plays with such a smartness and a tenacity that he's going to give you a pretty damn good NFL career. for pick 113 for a guy who absolutely fills a need, which is we just need dudes who are going to give us good reps. This is a home run.
I love it.
It's a home run. And it really does make up for all of the questions that you might have with Collins, as you mentioned.
Yeah, if they just left Collins out there, it's like you're going to pair him with Jordan Elliott and Kevin Givens and Evan Anderson, who like all give you a little something, but not any real consistency. I think West could be just outstanding. Yeah.
He's never going to make a Pro Bowl. He's never going to be.
He might. He might.
I don't think he's going to get the numbers, but I think that much like at Indiana, you'll know when he's on the field, and you will definitely know when he's off the field because he's just a winning football player. And I know that comes across as trite.
Yeah, I think the usage, you're right, might limit him to try and get that. But
if this is a great question from Martinez Larkin. If West was picked at 75 and Nick Martin at 113, would this change your overall draft grade? I don't know if it actually would, because I would have no problem with West at 75. I had him at 36 on my board. So clearly I wouldn't have had an issue with that.
It would definitely change my perception, but it would also still be like aggressively search. I mean, and again, they went after to search for need and fill all these holes in the defense. Yeah. But I think it would at least be better value.
And I'll say, and again, going back to, you can fixate on, we fill position in round 1, round 2, like this is our round to do this. This is our pick to do this. You can do that when you have a guy like CJ West available at 113, not because he's the 113th best player, but because most teams probably have him as the 6th or the 7th best defensive tackle. And yeah, there's certain needs.
And teams all went crazy in the 3rd round and overvalued some players. I think,
third round did get absurd.
And that thought crossed my mind too. If you move the picks around, you definitely have a better view of how they handled it, but that's not how they handled it.
That's right.
They're lucky that he was there.
Correct. And then you also have the Upton Stout in the middle of it, where you're like, what? Like, just galaxy brain pick.
Yeah.
Jordan Watkins isn't a galaxy brain pick. This is a Kyle pick.
I actually like him.
I like him too. I don't think there's anything to really complain about with him.
Well, the only thing I'll say is that, like, because of the way they handled some of the previous picks, you had like, again, not that they were necessarily better fits, but like Jalen Royals and Io Manor, guys who were widely viewed as better prospects, both went like just before. So that's part of the reason value. Like,
do you think that they were going to take Io Manor and then? Hey, wide receivers went just before. Guess we better get a wide receiver. Who's next?
I am curious. Again, like, I have questions about Io Manor, but there's like some serious major upside. And again, Watkins has got upside too. I like him.
I think that he has a lot of depth wide receiver characteristics. He does have the speed. That didn't manifest as much as maybe you'd want it to. Didn't have
and he doesn't have a major catch radius for like a deep receiver, so it's like the ball kind of has to be right there.
Also a little fumbly, if we're being honest.
With the ball in his hands?
Yeah.
That was the last part of the evaluation that I need to get into, is ball in his hands. But in terms of like, he does have good hands. I think he generally catches the ball away from his body. Mm-hmm. In off man, he'll be fine. Yes. I think press man, I need to watch more. I have some questions. He's a real bad blocker. He is.
Oh, I don't know about that. No, I thought he was a willing blocker.
No, he is. But like, the force is not there. Like, he is in the right spot, but he's not packing a punch. I mean, he really isn't.
No, that's fair. He's got tiny little arms.
I will say one of my favorite things about him is that very convicted step when he's getting out of his breaks, sharp footwork, not necessarily as snappy as some other guys, but he can, there's a little wasted movement at times, but he has good decel to acceleration. He can get guys really bad on a stutter go, especially with an outside release. That's a real good.
He loves that deep 8. He loves it.
And on digs and like out routes, he flattens really well. Like, it's not loopy. Like, it's sharp. And so I think that's what Kyle likes. I think this is one where, like, people, again, there's in the value thing and the the big boards. I don't have a problem with him here. I get it. I think they needed a wide receiver.
Mhm.
I could fit their scheme. There's tiny parts of his game where I see like similarities to Pearsall. Not quite at that level.
Yeah, he can't
But
do anything against man, which is.
I don't
but,
know. I don't know about that. I need to see it against press man, but I'm not.
By the way, good luck
optimistic.
finding that.
Yeah.
Because every rep that it looked like, first off, he's a move wide receiver. So they moved him around the formation like crazy. And he's good at that. He breaks up connective tissue over the top and on the move. It makes me wonder where Pearsall fits in. Is Watkins his backup and they play him at Z? Because Z is the move guy, right? That's the Debo spot. Z is the move guy. X hangs out over there, stays over there. That's the Ayuk spot. So I think he could play all three. I think that his deep speed gives you the ability to play him at X as a clear out guy, which is what Ayuk did for the first 2 years of his career. Didn't do anything but run clear out.
He was used a lot in like the slot or at Z for Ole Miss.
I think he could play all three.
He did play everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he could play all three. I think he's clearly, as most guys who could play all three, he's probably best at Z, right? Because if he was really good at X, they would have left him at X, and if he was really good at the slot, they would have kept him in the slot. So where do you typically put that guy? Z. Z also gives you off press, right? Which is how Debo Samuel had so much success. It dares, if you want to play press against Z, you're bringing the entire house on snap after snap.
If you want
he's a fourth receiver. I agree with Niners on the go pocket. He's a fourth receiver and a good depth piece, and he can give you 10 games a year.
Agree.
But don't be playing him all the time.
And he produced better than was, I think, recognized, especially when Trey Harris went down.
Yeah.
I would have him probably just behind Torrey Horton, who went at like 166. Which, if you want to make a criticism, there's more upside there. But like again, that's
a floor ceiling thing. I think
it's Horton a little
has
nitpicky
the ceiling to where you're like, oh, he could have been like the number one guy.
I get it. I get it with Watkins. I'm putting the other argument out there. I don't think it was like the greatest pick I've ever seen, but I understand it. I think it's solid. I see the fit. I think he's immediately better than Jacob Cowing.
Jacob Cowing's done. It's over. Jacob Cowing's not going to be on this roster next year unless there's a bunch of injuries.
We'll see. I mean,
listen,
I don't know.
Jordan Watkins is going to run the deep post. That's like the only play they fucking ran at Ole Miss, just the deep post. Sometimes he was in the position to get it. Sometimes it was Trey Harris. Sometimes, they had like 4 really good receivers at Ole Miss. And he can do it. I don't think that unless you scheme him cushion, he's going to be able to get open for you. So you're kind of right back to where you were.
I think he does have some upside there. I think he does, but we'll find out. It's like I have some question about the short area, like when he faces NFL corners and they do press him. Like, what is his approach? Because there is some wasted movement, and there's a little bit of like I don't know how seriously to take this against some of these college corners and college defenses.
Yeah, I mean, you're just playing quarters.
He does attack hips pretty well and does get guys flat-footed. And that's encouraging.
The chat's worried about he sounds like Danny Gray. Danny Gray never played wide receiver. He should have just
Danny
stuck
Gray
the
was
track.
a guy that where you went, this is probably going to be a total whiff, but the upside is that you put the ball in his hands on a drag route and he just goes forever and he's going to take the top off of defense and maybe he's Marquise Goodwin. Which again, maybe not the best selection in round 3, but that was, I think, that was a COVID draft, if I'm not mistaken. He was not a good football player. I think he's one career catch. By the way, him, Cam Latu, and Ty Davis Price are like all on the Eagles practice squad. I mean, now they're invited to camp, but they're all on the Eagles, which is hilarious.
They're just hoping they brought the iPads with them. Jordan James goes 147 in the 5th round. I think you and I differ on this pick.
Okay. I think Giddens, again, if Giddens wasn't there, I would view this pick in a better light. I just think Giddens has substantially higher upside. I'm
with you there.
I think James is fine. I think he is a decent player. I'm going to pull up my actual eval, but where do you think we differ on this?
If I had to say there was one player that I've soured on the most since the pick, it would be James. There are a lot of characteristics that you would say, and I go, oh yeah, there's guys in the past that I love. But this guy's not Kamani Vidal, who never fumbled. Right. I like the fact that he wants to go through tight creases. I think that's important. I like the fact that he takes what's blocked for him. I think that's important. There's just something about his game. Is he good at anything? Is he particularly good at anything?
He's a good one cut. One cut. His first cut is really good. He does create, and he has good decel to acceleration, hard plant on that one cut.
I agree with that.
But I think he's viewed as faster, quite honestly, because he's short and he takes a lot of steps. I genuinely believe that. Because the testing, you go, oh, well, the tape over the testing. Right. But the decel sort of, and maybe that translates. Maybe that translates where he gets guys to think he's slower than he is. Yeah, I mean, listen, he's not fast, but he's quick. I think he's a bit reliant on the cutting to buy him space. And it's just like I prefer him in between the tackles more than outside the tackles.
And this is where I give the Elijah Mitchell comp.
I don't agree with that. Elijah Mitchell was like pure speed and was physical in between the tackles, but not nearly as shifty.
I mean, they used Elijah Mitchell as a battering ram.
Right. There is an element of that there, but I think he's
Elijah. I think the problem that we're having here, and I think this is the point of differentiation, as this particularly pertains to Elijah Mitchell, is that Elijah Mitchell on the practice field and Elijah Mitchell in a game were two very different people. Elijah Mitchell on the practice field, you're like, God damn, that boy can scoot. And it was fun because no one was going to bring him down. And once he got into a game, he was a very good running back. 5'10", 200 pounds. Jordan James, 5'10", 205. A lot of similarities there. A lot of technical prowess, like they're technically strong backs. Not fumblers. Yeah. Maybe I'm remembering.
I mean, Mitchell was more raw when he came out. I
that's
think
why he was a 6th-round pick.
Right, Mitch. The problem with Jordan James to me, like I get it because I think he's sharp. I think he really follows blockers well. Right, like he's really able to take the yards. He gets forward because of his short stature. He falls forward and is sort of tougher to tackle. I don't think he's strong in his upper half, but his lower half, he can drive a little bit. And he'll just take a straight 4-yard carry if it's there. The upside is not very high to me.
No.
I think his best case is like an RB2 who's like in the consistent rotation. I think he's a fairly high floor, medium low ceiling guy. He's gonna listen. He can have a role. He can be your third down back if you lose McCaffrey. Meanwhile, though, like they talked about his receiving ability. They're like, well, we didn't see it, but at his pro day, they kept talking about his pro days where they saw it, and I was like,
where he's not wearing shoulder pads.
It's a red flag to me. I think he looks a little lost as a receiver.
A little.
Yeah.
There wasn't a catch that I saw on film that didn't involve the shoulder pads in some way, whether it was the chest plate or the top. Like he looked great in his pro day. Yeah, because he wasn't wearing shoulder pads. He can't catch the ball in shoulder pads, Jake. Kind of important when you're playing in the NFL. And by the way, a guy who really needs significant shoulder pads if he wants to stay alive out there.
Yeah,
this team is like small, and I'm not sure why they got the impression that that's a good thing to be in the modern NFL.
No,
I get fast, but you want to be fast and big.
It's a little weird because he's kind of like a more physical runner. Like he is like a between the tackles, short yardage guy, but he's small. And again, he was really good in the red zone because again, I think one of his advantages is that because he's so small, like he can sort of hide behind the line of scrimmage and it's hard to get a beat on him. So he's usually going to steal those like 4-yard carries, and he just gets low and can scoot through, and he does take the yards that are there.
Let me go back to the Elijah Mitchell comp because I am kind of fixated on it. I'm not digging a hole. I'd be happy to admit when I'm wrong, but this idea, again, of Elijah Mitchell as this burner never manifested on the field. His longest runs each year, 39, 37, 18. So he wasn't like getting through the hole and then running away from dudes. They used him like a battering ram, and his career was 3 years. Right? He didn't even get on the field for the Chiefs last year. His career was 3 years. I can appreciate that Elijah Mitchell was a very good back. This is what I feel like they're – and by the way, Jordan Mason just went in and did the Elijah Mitchell thing in a very different frame with no vision. Elijah Mitchell at least had decent enough vision. I think the argument for James is he should have really good vision. I think that
he does.
His tape shows very good vision. And then, tough little fucker. Like that's a really positive trait to have. Elijah Mitchell was a tough little fucker too, but his body and his mind never got in line. I disagree. I want to make sure that we're clear on this point too. Did you say that you don't think he can be a Christian McCaffrey replacement in the sense of if McCaffrey goes down, he can't be an every down back? Because that's what I see, because he's a jack of all trades, master of none in my eyes. So I see the Niners viewing him as, if we just need, instead of keep Garendo in this specific role, we can keep these other guys in specific roles, like Patrick Taylor is in a role of doing nothing.
So
like,
no, I do think he could do that. I think it's something where it's like, do I think he can make a career as an every down player? No. But can he, for the 49ers, fit in as McCaffrey's backup in a pinch for a few games and play that role and probably succeed? Because, again, the scheme they run, they have running backs that produce. Yeah. Again, I'm not that low on him. I think he's fine. I don't see monumental upside. There's not like elite physical traits to bet on. I think he is sharp. I think he has a feel for running the ball. Again, one cut and go, has a really good ability to decel and accelerate, and that gets guys, on a back foot. And he needs to do that because he doesn't have the raw speed. And there's some decent contact balance. He gets low, doesn't really fumble. So he's like a solid player. The ceiling is not that high for me.
Let's talk about kind of, big picture, what he could be. I think he's a Sean Tucker, Tampa Bay running back type.
Yeah. Yep.
That's okay.
Sincere McCormick, maybe.
That's a good one.
Maybe a little Jeremy McNichols.
Jeremy McNichols was on the 49ers like 7 different times.
Again, these are guys that stay in the league. Like, so...
Yeah, because they're not running it 200 times a year. But then there's the Elijah Mitchell where you do run him.
He's a good back to have.
It's over.
He's a good back to have.
I think he's a pro.
And again, it's like to people commenting like, it's fine. I don't have a massive criticism of it. I just think DJ Giddens is a better player with much more upside. So I would have. That's my main criticism, which I think is hard to actually debate because it's just obvious.
How about this? I think their pick 75, 100, 138, 147, 160, and 252 might just be special teams guys.
Maybe. I think that's probably a little harsh, but I can absolutely see that.
You put any of those guys on the Eagles, what's happening? They're playing special teams. I mean, Junior Bergen, we'll get to him. He's special. That is.
Yeah, I kind of love it. So anyway,
we'll find out. It doesn't
moving
matter
on to the next one.
Marquise Sigle. Do I have that right? Sigle.
Marquise Sigle. I think it's Sigle.
Sigle makes more sense.
Yeah,
like Beagle Sigle. I at 160, I'm not going to bitch about taking Marquise Sigle.
Sure. Because
there are traits that this is an all traits, no tape guy. And by the way, my favorite aspect of watching Marquise Sigle, which I had a very light exposure to him before the draft, not a name that came up often, but I did see the RAS score. I might want to take a look because I got to type. My favorite aspect of him is, my God, could he come into the frame at the end of an all 22? Nobody ran into the frame at the very end harder to then stand around the play. There's a reason that this guy wasn't talked about much. It's because he doesn't show up on tape like ever.
I watched like 2 full games and it barely shows up. So
he was like the fourth best defensive back on Kansas State.
My thing with him is like he seems like a nickel or a box safety, but a smaller guy doing that. Mm-hmm. I like his ability to like connect, turn and run against outside releases from the slot, like guys going out and up.
Yeah. Yes.
But he does get flat-footed sometimes. Like he does sit and wait for contact 5 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards deep. Mm-hmm. And if somebody hesitates, he can get flat-footed. There's a really bad play against Arizona State, like 3 minutes into the tape. He gets crossed up and allows a touchdown on a slot fade.
I will note within the first 3 minutes of that Arizona State film, I'm still like, which one is he again? I keep finding Jacob Parrish. Couldn't lose Jacob Parrish, but couldn't seem to find this Sigle guy.
5 minutes later, he gets flat-footed and flagged and beat. So he's a guy that is mostly projection. I understand the projection. I understand betting on the speed. Also, because you might be missing Mustafa at the start of the year, you're saying, well, maybe he's got similar traits. I still don't think this team is a goddamn free safety on the roster.
They might think that he can be that because he can really get sideline to sideline fast.
But
like, I don't think he has
in terms of playing center field and understanding how to like play coverage, which is extraordinarily difficult. Yes. Like they've had a lot of problems with that in years past, and it's like
which is why people are willing to bet on a Malachi Starks who doesn't have the athletic traits, but they at least like I think he can see it. I think he can see it. Ed Reed was not a great athlete.
And again, safety is, I think, outside of maybe quarterback, probably the trickiest position to evaluate because one, there's every defense is asking different asks of their safeties. Two, college defenses are kind of a joke.
And it's always too high.
Yeah, and three, it's like it's just there's so much to sort out in these different schemes, and like sometimes guys just want to get involved in the play. It's really hard to evaluate it, and there's so many different skill sets that like might not show up for a guy. So maybe they see the projection, they know what his role is. Josh, I think Williams, their scouting director, was like, you have to have a vision for what the player is.
Clearly they have a vision here because if you're just taking what he did in college and saying this will translate to the NFL level, you just blew 160 up with 10 sticks of dynamite. But I can see where at least there are moments where you go like, oh, that's interesting. But again, he's coming from Kansas State. Like Kansas State's a really well-coached team. Like they don't ask a lot. We watched
a lot of Jacob Parrish and didn't notice him. Right?
I mean, yes. Again, we're doing some after the fact ass covering, lack of a better term. But like Sigle, the only conversations that I posed it to a couple of people that I trust, and someone I really trust said that like, yeah, I think teams saw him as a nickelback because they want you. He can't see the field. You want him close to the line of scrimmage. You want that speed and acceleration. Kind of honey badger like, though honey badger's all between the ears.
I totally see that.
Maybe that's what the Niners see with making
but then why are you drafting Upton Stout at 100 and then
I don't know. I'm sorry to complete the thought. Like I think that maybe they view him as a Hufanga replacement as a box safety, which is effectively Sam linebacker.
I mean, yeah. I mean the thing with Hufanga,
he's closer, right? Like if you're thinking about the ideal cover 3, you have nickel on one side and then Sam linebacker that's covering if you go 4 wide, which a lot of teams, particularly the Rams now with all their tight ends, like then you have 2 guys on the outside. It's almost a 6-man front in that way. It's almost like 13 technique.
Right. I wouldn't love that. I mean,
it's an idea. And so when you talk about you need to have a vision for the guy, like that's a vision. It is a narrow band for a player that
I can get that. And he's not too small. Like he's fine. He's like average size.
I'm not worried about his size. I'm worried about the fact that he just there's no evidence that he sees it and that he gets lost. It looks like he's got the beach ball on a Mac going when he plays, where he's just like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Like it's not instinctual for him.
I don't. Yeah. And I will say for Hufanga, they did miss him, especially as like a blitzer. Like, and he was great on run stops.
Yeah.
He
was their only gap filler for like a year.
So again, it's a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys, you go, okay, I could see it. I could see where the upside is, but there's just a lot of projection. There's a lot of projection with him, and
I like Brash Cat's comment here that you got a smaller Emanwari at 160. I mean, smaller Emanwari is not exactly a selling point for me because I wasn't high on Emanwari, but yeah, like at 160, I don't mind you getting weird.
Why are you using so many caps? Why are you so upset?
He's excited. We get people excited. We get people amped. So, like, I'm not going to complain about it at 160, but I want to make this clear.
Yeah.
Like, Marquise Sigle, I think, will be a good special teamer because of his speed.
Totally.
And he's built like he should be playing special teams, like a man of no position.
And if he figures it out, there is major upside, right?
Totally.
Like that's where I totally get it.
But there is a world in which within 5 days, the 49ers are like, ooh, so we're going to have to cut pick 160. Nice job, everybody.
Again, it's not that we're saying like these guys are all busts. Like none of them. I've given none of them even D grades, right? Like
we've just kind of skipped on the grades actually. CJ West is an A. Jordan Watkins, I gave him a C+. What do you give?
I think that's what I gave him.
Jordan
too.
James, where are you at?
I think I also gave him a C+, maybe a B-.
Yeah, I'll give it just a straight C. I think Sigle is a straight C.
Yeah, sorry. That's what I have.
Maybe C-. Again,
I think I get it. I get betting on Sigle. I think again this is choosing their guys. I just think it's a lot of guys who are small, who are.
That's what I was betting on,
and they want the all gas no brake. I understand you want speed. Speed's great. A lot of great safeties though, like don't necessarily have like the greatest testing in the world. It's a weird position. I think I'd prefer feel and paired with aggression over just this guy's fast.
ADP 4949 saying, don't forget the Niners signed 3 safeties in the offseason. Jake, can you name the 3 safeties they signed in the offseason?
Jason Pinnock.
I loved him at Pitt. So did Robert Saleh.
Jason Pinnock, and there's like 2. Another Trey Avery. I think
they
he
got
might
a lot
be a
of
corner.
That's right.
I think he might be a corner. They picked up a bunch of like $1.5 million, like, you know.
They are human beings that are technically under contract.
Siren Neal. By the way, Jason. And then they also got there's one other guy I forgot.
Siren Neal is not a person. Who is
Siren
Neal?
There's a guy. Who am I forgetting?
Well, it's pretty. Point made. Pretty easy to forget these guys. You know?
Yeah.
Like who starts?
Siren Neal.
I'll pull up the R lads. Let's get into the. By the way, one of the
Richie Grant, a guy who Falcons fans were really happy to let go. Yeah. No, and like I get, ADP saying, playing a numbers game. Like I get, trying to moneyball it, but I would also love to have somebody that you'd feel even a little bit comfortable about in center field. And it's also safety is a market that lingers. So it's something where maybe you go into OTAs, you say, oh, this is not going to work. And then you pick somebody up. Lynch did leave the door open. I asked him because the compensatory window is closed. You could go out and say, all right, we are going to sign a veteran for $4 or $5 million. I don't think they do that, but that door's open. And maybe they get into OTAs and all this and they say, yikes, let's go get one.
I mean, you look at the history of the 49ers in drafting. We know that it was really bad, and last year was pretty good with, again, early returns. Last year, they get Isaac Orendo at 129. I mean, Cowings 135, Kingston, who they cut in camp, 215, Tatum Bethune, who will be just on the team because nobody has kicked him off it yet, at 251. So they had this great draft. I mean, I don't know where people stand on Garendo, but we all feel very good about certainly Pooney and Green and Mustafa, and you and I are very high on Pearsall. He'll always have to carry that first-round draft grade, which is a higher standard, but is what it is. They got it all done in the 130. So the Niners, if that's the cutoff line of where you can reasonably expect to get picks, which is a very, napkin bit of math here. Their 130, their before 130s were Williams, Collins, Martin, Stout, and West. That is 2 A pluses, a B, and like 2 Ds. And again, I like Upton Stout as the player. I just would like to see him on 31 other teams instead. That's a C draft if there ever was one. Like, how can you get 2 A pluses and still do it? Like, this is my high school and college career right there. Get the good grades early, fade all the way to the end.
Yeah, I give it a B. I give their draft a B, and maybe that's generous, but I do think I can see what they see in a lot of these guys. I think they're being too optimistic. I think they're being rose-tinted in how they evaluated a lot of these guys. Okay. But I also, like with each one of them, I'm not like, oh, this guy is 100% going to be a bust. Like this guy has no role whatsoever.
Right. No, I get it.
Yeah. I even like Junior Bergen, whatever, 252, just as being like, we're going to get an awesome punt return.
I do want to get into the 227, 249, 252 picks with no inherent value. Couldn't have traded them if you tried.
Yeah.
Let's skip Rourke for now. Let's talk Connor Colby.
I didn't like the tape.
I don't get it.
I mean, I get it because he's an athlete, right? He tested really well.
Then why doesn't he look good at playing offensive line for 4 years?
That would be
a lot of snaps.
Connor Colby was a guy that was going to be in the draft guide, and I didn't have too many nice things to say, so I kind of cut it because I was not enjoying the tape. He was in there. I was trying to watch Tyler Ellsbury, who is like the jack of all trades guy.
I liked him. Yeah.
At Iowa. He just didn't play very much. It was hard to find tape. Yeah, I literally had 7 UDFA. I described him as old lazy hands. That was my superlative for him. Again, this didn't make it in the draft guide. Larger guy, maybe he gets decent coaching that teaches him how to use his body and becomes a solid backup or starter. Downside, can opener hips. Pushed around really easy. Pretty awful hands. Wants to be a bully, but like a little bit soft. There's a lot of lean-to him. There's not a lot to like except for his size and athleticism. He doesn't drive. I got annoyed watching him. Because you see the size and athleticism. Yeah. It was like I wasn't impressed. But again, it's 249, right? So you needed an offensive lineman. He's an elite athlete. So you say, we'll see. We'll see if Furster can find something. And if it works out, sure. But the tape's not encouraging.
I think that we're using the term elite when it comes to his athleticism a little loose. That's a generous.
It's really good.
Well, he's 50% on the 3-cone drill, 84% on the broad jump. That's what he's good at. 10-yard split is 55, 40-yard dash is 80th percentile. Here's where I'm worried. His wingspan is 6th percentile for offensive line. Now, okay, I don't know what that is for guard, but it's low. Arm length, of course, 7th percent. I'm on Mock Draftable right now. I'm looking at
that. Explains a lot because he's trying to get connected and struggling to.
Yeah. There are 3 names on this list that he is compared to. One of them is Drew Kendall, who we both really liked. Well, I'll give you another one. And Josh Myers, center out of Ohio State 2021 with the Rams.
Nice.
Josh Myers is a good player. I'm sorry, Packers. A very good player. He is also compared to Jarrett Kingston and Nick Sikelge.
That's really funny. Really funny.
And then you look at the charts, and he is Sikelge. He's almost identical to Sikelge.
That's really funny, yeah. It's the same exact mold.
Sikelge actually has a little bit longer arms. Do they have a fucking type or what?
It's really funny.
And Jarrett Kingston, who is just Sikelge with a better vertical leap and a better I don't. The idea that he's going to start, no tape backs that up. He has no anchor. He has.
Where's he starting? Left guard? Is that the argument? He would start at left guard. There's not a chance he's starting over Pooney. He's not starting over Jake Brendel. And then Ben Barch I like a lot more. Ben Barch has been in the league. He was awesome last year in the very short time he played. Even Burford. Burford is some questionable tape.
Started in a Super Bowl.
Correct.
Can't be that bad.
Colby's got a lot to prove.
Is there a world in which this all works out? Sure. Is that world going to be one we exist in? No.
Could he start later in the season? Possibly.
Well,
but I'm not
encouraged
by the tape. I'm not encouraged by what I watched, which was I actually watched it.
Yeah,
and I didn't.
The more you watch, you're like, what is this? I wouldn't be shocked if Drew Moss, the guy they brought in as an undrafted free agent, who also has very good athletic scores, perhaps not elite, was there, because at least with Drew Moss on the very light, sprinkling of, at least he looks like a mean sumbitch. He just looks like he's out here scrapping for every inch. So
yeah.
It was an uninspiring pick because Connor Colby's name. You know that, okay, the system should translate easy enough because it's an inside zone scheme there. But okay, I kind of like Connor Colby getting to the second level. I think he does a good job on that.
Totally.
That is
important. That's exactly what you like.
But man, he gets washed out really easily. His footwork is suspect. He gets there. His footwork suspect when he gets there. He's got zero anchor. The dude was spinning around like Jordan Elliott. I can't believe he got drafted.
He was great at getting out in space and helping, Caleb Johnson, who I was not very high on, rumble, right? So I get the type, and I get it's 249, and you're like, well, we would rather solve one of these needs now before undrafted free agency and get a guy. And I get it. I get it. He's got
My guess would be that they were really concerned that somebody else was really going to like him and that they didn't want to have to pay him more. So, like, in honesty, this is them trying to get him cheaper. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. In that, we don't want to spend, we don't love him enough to spend the budget on him. Let's use this completely useless.
I hate the tape, and I'd still give it like a B plus A minus. Like just because it's round 7 and because you desperately like need to invest in the offensive line and you're investing in traits. And even as I'm saying that, like I really don't like the tape. So I'll say
I'm surprised. I'm surprised he got drafted, and I'm a little bit surprised that the 49ers. I don't know what it is that they're latching on to.
Yeah.
Right?
They're latching on to athletic ability moving in space. That's what they're latching on to.
Yeah, and it's not even that. It's not impressive enough to be like, hey.
And they're saying like Chris Verster's like, you know, let's see if I can work with this guy. You know, let's get a couple.
I don't know why he's making his life difficult. There were
more
athletic guys.
By the way, someone mentioned in the comments, Clay Webb. We were not aware of the red flags when we put him in the draft guide. Lawsuit that is worth looking up. Not great.
Still pending?
I don't know, but there are red flags there that we were not aware of. So that's on us for not knowing about them. But he would have been probably.
If there's one lesson that we should really glean from this year, Jake, and this, I'm not. I mean, I'm a bit embarrassed by the web thing because I've been pushing him. I told you that.
Yeah, but the tape is outstanding.
The tape is awesome. I will say, if we learn one thing, it's why are you at a small school still?
Yep.
You better have a goddamn good reason because you want to know who's really good at talent evaluation? College coaches with money to spend.
Yep.
So why is Clay Webb at Jacksonville State? Oh, he wanted to be closer to home. I should have dug deeper on that. I should have. Ultimately, he was never a player that looked like he was going in the top 150. And so that's like a perfect fell through the cracks scenario in terms of getting the deep dive. But that won't happen again next year.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Junior Bergen. Fun on YouTube.
Hell yeah. He can return punts. And they're going to say, I think he was 152 in like Brugler's.
Good for him. Good for him finding Junior Bergen.
FCS legend. He can return punts. That's fun.
4 last year?
You talk about finding a role, punt returner. That's his role.
Well, I'm wondering what Jacob Cowing's role is going to be when he's working at Chipotle here.
All right. Come on.
It was mean, but like this 135 is done. It's over. Nevin 1221 asking, by the way, does the NCAA publish their GPS data or do only NFL teams get it? Buddy, the NCAA and these teams ain't publishing shit. They legitimately have more security over their information than the federal government of the United States right now. Not to politicize this, but like to answer your question, no. There's not. I got really good at freedom of information requests when I was covering college football because that's the only way you're finding out trivial things, much less GPS data on players. So, NFL teams get it because they ask nice, but it's there. So that why would they? So would they protect Shadur's phone number? Shadur's phone number, well,
that was.
I'll give credit to my man Pete Overset, who I used to work with, who said both Travis Hunter and Shadur should be amped. They both got calls from Jax. There it is.
Okay.
Not as funny when there's no audience and Jake doesn't laugh. Okay, Junior Bergen, he's your punt returner until he proves that he can't be. They brought him in for one reason and one reason alone. You're returning punts.
And they didn't want to compete in undergrad. Hey, at least they listened to their new special teams coach. We'll see. They seem to.
This is their guy. That's their guy. New special teams.
Yeah, 252. Great.
Whatever. I put an incomplete grade on it. Give it any number you want. It does.
There's not a chance I'm going to find all 22 tape on him, so he's not getting a full eval.
Do you know the panic attack I had when I'm like, I don't know Junior Bergen?
No one did.
I mean, I'm kind of, I watch more FCS than you. I actually have watched Montana tapes. Apparently, I flipped the channel when someone was about to punt. Curtis Rourke.
I like it. I like it. I wasn't even that high on him, but I like it because he's got size. He's probably going to go on PUP for the year, realistically.
You think?
Maybe. We'll
That'd
see. I mean,
clever enough.
yeah, I think it's a developmental guy that they're like, well, is he real? I don't know. I'm not going to say definitely he's going to go on PUP, but I think that's something that you could finagle and say, let's see how he's recovering, and we put him on PUP, and then we can pull him off kind of whenever if we want to. I think he rips it, which is one thing that Kyle consistently was like, Trey Lance, I keep telling him to rip it, and he doesn't, and Brock does. So that's one thing.
It, you got to rip it. I mean,
thing about Rourke is I think he has a lot. He's great at a lot of those like play action immediate slants that Jimmy used to run. He also, like Jimmy, really locks onto some targets.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch that Notre Dame game, there's early on he throws into triple coverage, actually quadruple coverage if you include the umpire, because the umpire's in the mix too, and it gets picked off by Xavier Watts. Mm-hmm. He, they talked about liking his vision. I don't love his vision. I think I was probably too harsh in saying he's like kind of blind, but he does lock onto targets. Again, you have to give him some deference in terms of like navigating the pocket because of his ACL thing. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I think he's a questionable decision maker who locks on, but he will rip it. He will rip it. And at 7th round, a guy with size who like produced well at Indiana through an injury. I like it.
They had this guy a couple of years ago. Yeah, they had a guy like this on the roster. They paid him a good amount of money, too. He's Nate Sudfeld. He's the second coming. He also went to Indiana, by the way. He's Nate Sudfeld. And by the way, Nate Sudfeld is just Sean Mannion.
I think he's got better arm talent than Sudfeld, but I see.
Well, you saw the late stage Sudfeld. Early Sudfeld was just out there ripping it. And Sudfeld in high school threw 16 interceptions. Like, this is a guy who was just he was a swashbuckler. He was fun at Indiana. I remember watching him in Indiana. He was fun as the Eagles backup. I would watch preseason games of the Eagles, and he was just a ripper. He's Nate Sudfeld. They got Nate Sudfeld. Take that for what it is. Now, Diners on the Go podcast saying Sudfeld was Bledsoe statue-like. First off, Bledsoe was not a statue. That's how he almost died. Two, because he was running. And two, Sudfeld used to be a hell of a scrambler. And then he took some hits, which is why the Eagles moved on from him. And late stage Sudfeld is not what I'm talking. I'm talking early stage Sudfeld. By the way, it's not as if Curtis Rourke doesn't have some mileage on him now. I mean, he got beat the hell up last year, not just with the ACL injury. I think he played with a broken thumb. I mean, he was battered to all hell last year.
Yeah. He has some anticipatory ability, but like I want the ball to come out quicker most of the time. And because he can zip it in there, it's like it can come out a little later than it can with Brock. But yeah, I think he's a guy that like if you want the upside is understandable. You're at 249. I will never begrudge anyone for taking a quarterback late round 7. I think that's a good
227. How does that change your opinion on it?
No, it's fine.
He's accurate and he's tough and he's clearly a leader of men. He was at Ohio. Yeah. He was at Indiana. These things
he can put it in tight windows for sure.
Just don't. The issue is that he's going to be playing in the NFL now, and the NFL, everybody's Ohio State and everybody is Notre Dame. I mean, he played this. This will be a plant the flag right here. I don't think much of 85 to 90% of the Big Ten. I think it's a joke. I think that league has been held up by 2 teams every year. By the way, a rotating cast of second team. It's Ohio State, and then, is Penn State going to do it this year, or is it Michigan? And then years before that, it was, every now and again, Michigan State might do something, or Wisconsin might do something. The Big Ten is a laughingstock. I suppose now I have to include Oregon, but like the idea that the SEC and the Big Ten operate on the same level is false. Their best teams do, singular teams, But the rest of the league, like Mississippi State, would have finished 5th or 4th in the Big Ten last year.
Yeah.
So Curtis Rourke is out here having he took Indiana to the playoff.
Yeah.
What kind of competition is he going up against here, Jake?
Okay.
I mean, I love a lot of the tape that he put out there, but I have to view it on the curve a little bit.
I agree. I agree. Against the tougher teams, granted, his receivers were not really separating for him, not doing much to help him out.
That's true.
I was overall mostly impressed. I think, and you grade a little bit on the curve with the ACL, major toughness. I do think he needs to get the ball out a little bit quicker. Needs to see it a little bit better as opposed to just locking on. Because I think he was like, I'm going to the right place, but not really getting off the read if it was not coming open. And then by that time, he's crushed.
We're in a world where Dylan Gabriel got drafted in the 3rd round. So Curtis Rourke in the 7th is a triumph.
Oh, yeah. No,
of the system.
I really like it. I really like it.
I would have taken him over Dylan Gabriel. I would have.
Absolutely.
We're in a world where Jackson Dart went in the 1st round. No one knows a goddamn thing about the quarterback position.
No, they don't.
So what does this guy have that is really important? I was saying this about Shedeur. He's accurate. He's accurate under pressure. Though, to a degree, the Ohio State film and Notre Dame film say something different. But I do think that he's tough. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And he'll goddamn rip it.
These are very positive things. Do not listen. This is my, all of that said, do not listen to anybody, not a single person, who is suggesting that Curtis Rourke is some sort of starting NFL quarterback. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with liking Curtis Rourke. He is a backup, probably a very good backup at best. He is a backup quarterback in this league. The idea that Curtis Rourke is coming in and giving the 49ers options for Brock Purdy, that is, I haven't heard it. Legitimately, I have not heard anyone say that, but I know how these things go. That is disqualifying banter. Y'all want attention? I'll give you some attention. I'm never listening to anything you say again.
I think there's, like, in the most rose-tinted way, you could say, all right, in a few years down the line, like, if he gets a shot, he could take advantage of it, find himself. Like, there's definitely a pathway.
Games. Yeah.
There's definitely a pathway to that. But the idea that he's coming in now off an ACL surgery is going to, like, compete and take the job, I think is insane. Again, no one's saying that, but yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure someone's going to say it because they just need the attention. Mac Jones is a much better quarterback than Curtis Rourke. He is. Now, Curtis Rourke might be around longer because Curtis Rourke is going to be cheap for the next 2 to 4 years. But there's the idea of, Brock, what about Brock? What about Brock? What about Brock? How many people's lottery tickets don't win? It's a lot more. And with Brock Purdy, you can look at some stuff and be like, oh, there's some magic there.
He's not someone you should ever try and copy. As like, oh, let's get.
We can just do Brock Purdy again.
Right.
No, you can't.
Yeah, Lynch made fun of that. He's like, yeah, we wanted to take him in the. He's like, yeah, we didn't know. Of course we didn't know. And
then they show up at camp and it's like, oh man, Brock Purdy's the truth. So it's like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
That's great. Yep. It is a crapshoot. And the idea that we have some empirical knowledge here, like if we did, we wouldn't be doing this. But also, if John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan did, they wouldn't be in the predicament they're in. I mean, there are teams that draft well. Even they are getting, 60% is the most aggressive I'll ever say.
You're going to whiff on a lot of picks. That's just the nature of it.
What you have to do is you have to consistently kick ass in the top 100, if not the top 150. I guess for the Niners, it was 130 last year. So I also say, Jacob Gordon, this is a Larry point that he's pushed in the past. Like, oh, well, if you have a good quarterback, you can always trade him. Not really. There's no real evidence that there's just all these quarterback trades happening all the time. I mean, they traded Sam Howell. Sam Howell started an entire season in the NFL. This idea that teams are going to trade, let's trade.
Sam Howell, you know what Sam Howell was worth? He was worth 20 spots of draft position with another pick.
Right.
He was worth literally 20 spots between two picks to
in the
bump
fifth
one of
round.
those up. Yes.
Fifth round value. So like the idea that, oh well, you could work them up and then trade them later. Like no, like that's not how it works. You're never going to be able to give them enough preseason reps to where, because every year there's like 10 quarterbacks in the preseason, and their fan bases go batshit insane. It's like, yeah, but they were going up against the fourth string.
Yeah.
They
By the
were
way,
playing
Corey
some
Kiner.
dude. Yeah. Go.
Corey Kiner, who like there's been some buzz about, and I'm not knocking him. I just know for a fact that like regardless of what he does, people are going to be like, "Oh my God, this guy is our best running back." Like that's just how it works in the preseason. Is like you want something to get hyped about, so you choose a player.
Yep.
You might see one clip, and I don't get it. It's fun to be excited, but like that's for sure what's going to happen. People are going to be like, Corey Kiner is the truth, regardless of what he does. And I'm not saying he maybe he is, but like that's just what happens.
Well, I mean, this is as much as legacy media is very dead. By the way, still working legacy media, but it is as much as it is dying. This is a byproduct of legacy media, in that they send. I go to the preseason games for the San Francisco 49ers. They're like, we need a column, and I'm like, buddy, none of this matters. Like the second Brock's off the field, there's the column, and if he doesn't play, I don't know what I'm going to do, because all I can do is bear my whole ass by building up somebody that, I have a Jacob Hurd and Deebo Samuel are the future of the 49ers column out there. You can see it. Got a half right. Got it 50%.
Jalen Hurd was sick when he was on the practice
for that
field.
one game.
He just was always injured and actually didn't want to play football. So, and maybe that's and maybe that's part of their like overvaluation this year is that they were like, we want guys who like want to play football, which I know is ridiculous, but there is some
there's about 10,000 people in the stands every game who still think that they could go out there and give them a rep. So like want doesn't do much for me. I appreciate that it is a nice separating factor, but
yeah, I think it's becoming more necessary to know, like, what's this guy's level of being able to deal with NFL physicality and not being like, I'm going to make a business decision here.
Totally get that. And I don't think that's wrong, right? Yellow flags is what we were talking about on that. But just to say, there are 3 preseason games. They are treated very similarly by legacy media, including, full mea culpa here, as important. And that drives a narrative for a week until the next goddamn game, because people, and by the way, they get crazy TV ratings. I mean, I think the CBS affiliate in San Francisco is going to go bankrupt. They're paying so much for the 49ers preseason games.
I enjoyed watching Cardale Jones on the Chargers years ago.
It's a 49ers game. People are going to watch it. I sit here. I got a TV right here. What am I going to do all August? You bet your ass I'm going to be sitting here and watching random preseason games. There was a year I watched every preseason game. So like the idea of preseason star, like it is just a byproduct of, we have to have something to write about, and you have to treat the game with some reverence or importance. And so who was good in game equals, oh, this guy is good. And it's just not the case.
Yeah.
It's just not the case. So
I'm with you. It's overvalued. Again, on the whole, I think it was a B draft. And I killed it. I love the way they handled their defensive line. Logan Brown is an interesting one. I don't know why he went undrafted. I don't know if that's come out yet. I guess there's some injury concerns there.
Has he signed anywhere?
But I think the biggest critique is that they've overvalued massively in the 3rd round, which also could help them in later rounds and maybe get some better value with their late round picks. And they still don't have a swing tackle at all. And now with Mustafa hurt, it's like, do you actually have a safety?
I mean, they're going Burford there or Zakelj. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I just think that's what they're doing.
All right. Have you paid somebody to carve up Brock Purdy's tombstone?
He could pay for it himself. He's about to have a lot more money.
Not yet. Well,
Not
yeah,
yet.
He's still got a lot more money.
Burford is the swing. Like, I don't love it. Barch. I mean, I will say that they signed 2 dudes off the street and they weren't half bad last year. What was it?
Yeah.
Pleasance, and what was the other one's name?
Can't even pretend. Oh yeah, Austin. Yeah, I think they just think they can moneyball it. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're right.
I gave it a C plus. I think that they did an outstanding job taking care of their number one priority. Right, like
Yeah.
defensive line was the number one priority. I think they did a very good job with that. I think that they are, for a team that has so many clear and pressing needs, they went extremely conceptual on this draft. Like this is an avant-garde and
Also, yeah.
If I wanted to give it a B minus, you know why it's a C plus now? The Jed of it all. Can't do it, man. I can't take you fucking seriously when that was happening.
The tweets read as, I'm dismantling the present, but selling you on the future with this draft.
Man, that's way too. That's
too deep for you?
For me, yeah.
Too deep. Yeah, that was cringeworthy.
Can you pull up the UDFAs? We're going to give a deeper cut on
the
UDFAs
this. Are Isaiah Nayer, who's like actually a pretty intriguing wide receiver out of Nebraska. Drew Moss, also solid IOL candidate. Corey Kiner, running back out of Cincy. Stone Blanton, linebacker, Mississippi State.
Tough as nails, yeah.
Jacob Robinson.
What do we know about Jacob Robinson?
Nothing.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Sebastian Valdez either. So that's something that we'll have. Stone Blanton, I know. He was a really good player at Mississippi State, and I'm not surprised he went undrafted. So,
love it.
There we go.
Love it. So,
we love you guys too. Thanks so much.
We
got such incredible positive feedback.
Genuinely.
We really do appreciate that. Inside buildings, outside buildings, media, outside media. Listen, we got an interesting little subsection we got going on here. It would not be fun, and we would not be doing this if we did not enjoy the people that we're doing it for, which for me, misanthrope number one is a statement.
Yeah. Dieter hates most people and he loves you guys. As do I. It is genuinely like, I do feel like, as much as, all discourse gets weird. Like we do have some pretty great discourse. I've seen some other streams where it's a little, you're totally missing the boat here. I appreciate
and
you
folks. Can't engage with it because it's toxic. I appreciate how you guys, even if you want to get into it.
Even if you're mad at us, yeah,
right. That's cool. Like it's not toxic. I legitimately am not saying this as some sort of sucking up thing. First off, give us money, please give us money. Second, second, I think it is smart discourse in general. I think it's people wanting to get to the bottom of it, holding the team and us to high standards, which is, I think, vitally important, and very engaged, educated discourse. And we learn something from you guys. We love interacting with questions like that to whatever degree we can help in those regards. And man, I'm just, I'm over the moon with where we're at now, and I'm really excited for everything that's to come.
Me too. I am still, so what I'm working on is basically an extension of the draft guide just for the 49ers players. Yeah. We'll see if I get to it with undrafted free agents, but at least for their draft class, working on an extension of the draft guide so that, because some of those players weren't in it. And again, that was not something that I'm surprised by, because the draft gets weird and I can only look at so many goddamn players.
Right.
But yeah, I'm going to add an addendum. Already did it for Nick Martin, so you can see. Yep. But going to add an addendum just as like a mini 49ers draft guide for everyone who's already got it as an official SICKO member. Obviously, you're good, but that's what it is, because appreciate you folks. And channel's grown and doing well. And I think it's only fair to add those players in.
And I'll also say, there's 2 QR codes on the screen if you're watching. One of them is a sub to the Hutch Report. That's his Substack. I'm a paying member. Not sure how I didn't get one for free, but that's neither here nor there. And then becoming a SICKO is under Hutch right here. The perks for being a SICKO increase by the minute. Every time I take a shower, I have a new idea. And I do think that there's going to be some really good ones. What I really enjoyed during this draft coverage is that we tried to limit the conversation. And I'm loving the chat today. It's our subscribers only. That's a way to just get people to subscribe to the channel if you want to participate. But I do think members only chats or official SICKOs only chats are really, really fun.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be doing more and more of those. And there's just more and more stuff that we can do for the official SICKOs to give you the best bang for your buck.
Yeah. Plan on doing some breakdown videos. I don't know if we'll get to every single player, but we will have at least some breakdowns of the 49ers draft class. And some of that's just going to be people who have been members. So
we got OTAs, we got rookie mini camps, we got
the start of the Valkyries.
Free agents. Now we're Niners. I mean, remember that fun times when we thought we could talk about something else? We were wrong.
Nope.
That's okay. Nope. We love this. And we love you guys. We'll talk to you.